Hey, how's it going, all? Just back with another lesson. I want to talk about quantifying things, and apologize for my voice and my cough. I'm just getting some allergies right now. But, I want to talk about how, that the way the system and the world is right now, it's very difficult for us not to impart those characteristics onto God, and just the way the world is right now, it's very much hierarchical. Maintaining those hierarchies is absolutely crucial. The corporate world is just one example, but it's just you can't be smarter than your boss. You can't try and overtake them or threaten them or anything like that. You just got to play along, and then that hierarchy continues to maintain itself until someone at the top ultimately wants a change. And so, same that's happening, I feel, in the religious world, very much. And these hierarchies are very spiritual, on the left hand side, because and we have biblical example of how spirits travel in groups, or legions. And one would think that even though it looks like there's chaos in the world right now, and there still is a structure to it. There are still spirits that are higher than others on the evil side. And so that's just playing out right now, in the world. And so, it's very hierarchical, and maintaining that hierarchy is very important. And, no one at the top is giving up their position. You don't see evil people at the top being like, oh, it's just kind of bored of this, I'll just give this role to someone else, and someone on the lowest, and, let them have a try, or, that type of thing. It's very much, always, that person, that energy, that entity will always want, the proper reverence and stuff, and will not give credit to God. Obviously, that's the function of the left-hand side, because once you do that, it really flattens out the hierarchies. Once you bring God in the picture, the Most High, the highest spirit, then, it's kind of like a far field effect. It's like every spirit aside from that entity, not including Yahawashi or Jesus, is distant from that spirit. Some are slightly closer than others, but they're all really far away. It's like you'd have the point at the top of the pyramid, and then you would have pretty much everybody at the base. It's not like John the Baptist will be bragging about how he's minutely closer to the Most High, than everybody else, and he would never say that, and he is the one that the Bible claims that proclaims is the highest spirit, aside from Yahawashi. And he's Elijah. And so, that's the structure of the left-hand side, and we see that playing out in the world right now. It's very hierarchical, obsessive need to quantify things, which is kind of the what I want to talk about here. Right now, it's especially in the age that we live in now, it's profits, faster, stronger. In golf, it's less, less strokes, to get, through a round, and, what's your net worth? How much money do you have is a huge thing. And, just by the term itself, just using money to describe net worth is alone antichrist, is satanic. The Bible, and we'll go through a couple verses that, that is a very poor measure. I'm not saying it's always wrong, and we have examples that is not the case, where there are righteous people who've had money, loss of it. But, that's not the top metric, or how many followers you have, or how many people you have around you. In fact, it would seem more likely in these days that righteous people would be very poor, living a sort of meager existence, because making a lot of money in this society right now requires a lot of people to, be sellouts, to lie, or to do it in, to steal, to cheat, take advantage of others unlawfully. And so, again, I'm not saying people can't have money in this time. It's definitely possible. There are ways to do it, I feel, still, that are, okay. But, and they wouldn't be necessarily people with a huge following. It's to me, it seems more likely when I look at YouTube channels and stuff, I prefer to watch people who have 300, 400, 500 followers or less. It's again, it doesn't mean that it's true, but, It worries me when people get into the 50,000 and 100,000 and stuff. Obviously, there's still some truth in what they're saying, but it's like God is not allowing the truth to be broadcast like that. It's just the whole truth. I'm not saying that there's no truth in those channels. There are, and I follow many of the, I follow X22 Report and like Dabu and some of these other, alternative news media things, but we kind of know that, they don't get the full picture, but obviously they're still giving us some, pertinent information, that we can use to track the end times. But, it's just using like number of followers and your audience base as a measure for, how close you are to God is a poor metric. And especially in the times that we live in now. But I want to talk about, this excessive need to quantify things, and that's very much, it's just wrong. It's not even, I don't even want to say evil. It's just not logical. It's just not logical with respect to the logic that's laid out in the Bible. It's not consistent with that God, the God that's the God of Israel. So I want to go through the first scenario where Jesus or Yahawashi, just is trying to put in a position to quantify something, and he just shies away from it, and gives a warning as well. So in Luke 12:13, it says, "And one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother that he divide the inheritance with me. And he said unto him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesseth." And then he goes into a great story, which is very challenging. And he's like, "And he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits?" This guy's, he's overflowing. It's just a person who has so much money, they don't even know what to do with it. And he said, "This will I do. I will put down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid out for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasures for himself, and is not rich toward God." So this is an individual who has very high quote unquote net worth, and Yahawashi, Jesus, makes the point that you could die at any moment, and let's say your number is called, and what will those riches do for you? So it's not logical. Like, it's just purely for any time you have belief in God. First, you will know that God gave you that abundance, and then second, you would be like, you would want to be with God. It's not a practical thing for any spiritual person who believes in an afterlife to accumulate wealth on earth, because it just doesn't make sense. It's like, why would you want to be here, even if times are great and not evil like right now? You still wouldn't want to be here with a lot of money, because you're still susceptible to dying or pain or seeing a lot of other people in that condition. And people, even if you don't even necessarily care about them, it's you don't want to be rich on earth. It's like, we have a God. If there's a God who created all things, created all these billions and billions of people in this earth and all the storylines and controls everything, why would you not want to be near that? And I'm speaking to myself as well. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical to want to be rich and use your riches to stay on this earth longer. It just does not make sense. And that's not the logic of God. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the God of this Bible, just God in general. It does. Whatever spirit created this earth, one would think that you would want to be around that spirit. Why would you want to be around the spirit's products, its output, and not the spirit itself? It's like, it's the mastermind, behind it all. So, if you really like what it's produced, or have some enjoyment with what it's produced, why would you not want to be around the one who's produced it? And so, storing up wealth, especially in these times right now, make absolutely no sense. And so another example in Matthew 20:21, and he said unto her, What wilt thou? She saith unto them, Grant these my two sons that may sit, the one on thy right hand and the other on the left hand. So the disciples' mom is asking Jesus to put her sons on the left and the right hand side. But Jesus answered and said, Ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They say unto him, We are able. So he's saying, are you ready to go through what I'm about to go through in order to fulfill what you're asking? Because that would be part of it. And he saith unto them, Ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right and my left is not to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. And when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the two brethren. But Jesus called them unto him and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. So he's contrasting the left and the right-hand side, and the way it works. But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. And as they departed from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. So this makes sense. It's like, if we are people who are on the right-hand side, trying to get closer to God and understand God more, and things that he likes, God is an entity, a spirit that can only give. He can only give, and he can only serve. He's not capable of, producing something that then he will need back from that, because it was his idea to make those things. So it's like God would never make earth and the people on it in order to get something from them. That just doesn't make sense, because he's created the very tools to create all that stuff. So it's like it's already his, So it's like anything that those individuals could do, or those entities could do outside of him, he would have given them those ideas. Even just our existence here, we think we're doing all these things, building all these buildings and creating these businesses and stuff, but God has given all these ideas to people. God has created the platform, the very foundation for us to do anything, to even have thoughts, to think. He gave us a brain, gave us any idea to possess truth or lies. So it's like, it doesn't make sense. So God can only give, and God can only serve by definition. He is a servant. And so that's what Jesus is telling the disciples, is that the person who is highest on the hierarchy of the right-hand side, like Jesus is, he would be the most inclined to serve, because that spirit would be the closest to the Most High, who is only capable of serving and giving. And so he's changing their mind frame, and it's interesting to hear that first that the disciples got their mom to ask, which I think is kind of, lame, not to throw them under the bus, but what, I mean, what's your mom going to do lobbying for you? But maybe she was a spiritual person, and I suspect she probably was, to have children like that. But that's kind of interesting. And then it's interesting and amazing to know that the 10 would argue or or move with indignation. And the only reason I find that hard to believe is and it's just because of the times that we live in. It's like if Jesus was here with what we know now, which is a lot more probably than what they know back then. If someone was doing miracles, I wouldn't really be thinking about hierarchies and stuff at this point. I would just be like, this is amazing. There's a guy out here, let's just say in Houston, Texas, walking around healing people, and just cleansing people and speaking all these words. You wouldn't be like, whoa, wait, I want to be on your, put me on the left and the right hand side. You would just be amazed. You just follow him around like it was a huge spectacle, and it's but the truth is that these disciples were around him enough to know that stuff was becoming kind of normal to them. It's like when someone does it for a long enough time, you expect them to do that. Obviously they were amazed, I'm sure, at the beginning. And they probably still were to some extent, years down the road. But it just shows that they got comfortable with him, which is a credit to Yahawashi, that he is God, but he is yet still able to create relationships with people that they would be comfortable enough, is a good way to say it, to ask this type of thing. And he wouldn't. Imagine going to the president of the United States now, Donald Trump or whoever, and be like, I want to be on your cabinet, or just some random person, or even people relatively close to him making a bold statement like this, I've been working like this for a while, can you promote me to vice president? You would not even ask him that, there's a lot of people close to him that would play their role, and just play along, and know that to take that takes a lot of other things to happen, they wouldn't even ask because they know that it would jeopardize their current job potentially. And so even just thinking about your own company, like you might be cool with your boss, but you don't ask your boss randomly like, hey, like, I want to be your this, or I want to go do that, or whatever. You have to like play it very carefully. So this is a bold thing, that the disciples are requesting, and obviously they sowed into it by being around him and learning and stuff. And I guess they don't quite know what's coming for them, in the near future. And Jesus tells them that ye shall drink indeed of my cup and be baptized. So he's saying that you are going to die a grisly death the way that I did. So, in a way, Jesus implants these interactions onto them so he can teach them and basically prophesy to them, and in a way that it actually helped them build their faith. So, this is an amazing thing that, the way the world is right now is completely contrary to God from a day-to-day perspective and just from the mindset. It's like creating a high net worth. Both of these interactions, involve some form of quantification, whether it's quantifying like hierarchies with the two disciples wanting to be the highest in the human hierarchy. And then the other one is like a financial one, and so quantifying, a division of an inheritance. And so, both things just, Jesus or Yahawashi resists. And because it goes against God's very nature. If one is spiritual and wants to learn about God and get closer to God, which are the people that Jesus cares about, they would not think this way, because you would not want to be on this earth longer. And the disciples would know, and now they know that in order to be that high on the hierarchy, you would have to use this time on this earth to serve and to be the most servant oriented in order to even have a chance of being on the left and the right hand side. And really, someone who ends up on that coveted position wouldn't ask that. John the Baptist, for example, who I suspect would be one of those two, or Elijah, he wouldn't think like that. He wouldn't ask that. And I'm not saying that they're evil people to the core, but this is an evil request to ask this. It's like ultimately God created all of us, and we know this more now with the perspective. We have the luxury now of looking kind of the rearview mirror. It's like we know God created everything, and so the things that we ask, He's giving us those questions to ask, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the questions are pure. But we know now that He created everything, and we're at the mercy of whatever He gives us. He could give us a nice day today, or He could give us incredible pain. And it's up to Him. And obviously, there's some function of like the stuff that we do, but ultimately, it's His decision. And so, this for sure is His decision. Who's on the left and the right hand side of His Son? So just throw that out there as far as not getting caught up in the way the world is. And I see these videos with like some leaders telling people to like, how many hours did you study, and like post this many videos, and how many hours have you been out teaching, and all this kind of stuff. I'm not saying that it's always wrong to think in those terms, but overall, broadly speaking, that mindset is satanic, to think that way, because it's very much the way our schools are run, and the way corporations are run. It's like numbers, results, profit, this and that. How many souls have you converted? How many people have you reached, and this and that. And again, those things, God is ultimately using people to do, and some people have a broader platform and some others don't, based on, again, God's calculations. So, we just, we have to just, play our role, to the best that we can, and definitely do not get caught up in these kind of attempts to quantify things, because it'll really ultimately lead us to disappointment. Because let's say we do, pass on to the other side, and then we get something, and then we might look at someone else who's getting some more responsibility or be higher in the hierarchy, and we will be like, why? Like, I didn't see that person doing what I was doing, or they did it like half as good as I did, and like this just shows that doing something, with very on a lower scale, but doing it sincerely, purely as a pure servant, I would rather be that person than doing something on a broad scale with a lot more reach, but expecting something from it, and doing it for a particular reward that me myself are dictating, and so it's a very dangerous thing, but ultimately take from this that people who truly are close to God, and it's good to examine this, then you would have to ask questions about servanthood first of all. That's just plain. Like if you're around a religious leader and you can sense that this person does not have any sense of community, whether it's his family or people around him, or care about the people around him, or how can that person care about the state of the world and all these like sort of deeper things, because God is looking across the entire world. He has that kind of a perspective, and so that's a very important thing, is that you don't ask. The first question I would ask a person who is a religious leader is like, first, do you believe that one sin is all sin all the time? That alone puts you in a very small group in the world right now, because the world right now does not teach that. It will not teach, first of all, what is sin, and then it will definitely not teach that we are guilty of all sins. That is only a statement that a person who understands the scriptures at a deep level would ever make. That means you are a murderer, a killer, a liar, a pedophile, a pervert, a prostitute, a homosexual, everything. You're just a thief. You're everything. You may not have committed those sins or even attempted to commit those sins, but that is the mindset. That is the humility, and that is a very, very small group of people. And then amongst that group, if you have a desire to serve other people and see them be lifted up closer towards God, those are two very strong characteristics of someone who is very, very close to God. And there are very few people, those people on this earth right now, just as a heads up.